Well, good day, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the Precision Agronomy portion of the 2020 Combine Clinic put on by Western Tractor. A bit of a different format this year, as we certainly appreciate everybody accommodating this virtual clinic. I'm going to start today by going over a few tips and tricks that aren't necessarily tied directly to the combine, but rather some helpful tools that can make combining much smoother when it is finally time to enter the fields for harvest. We all know that our machines love to combine crops that are standing, that they're even, they're dry, there's no green in them. This will help with cutting, this will help with feeding, and this will just help avoid that slugging of the material through the combine. Your machines will thank you for this, and harvest should go a lot better for you guys when we are using some of these tips and tricks here. So the first one I want to talk about today is harvest aids. Just make sure when we're using desiccants and harvest aids, they can be an excellent tool for drying down the crop, making it feed a lot better and cut a lot better. But just make sure that we're using the right products at the right rate at the right time, and that they are indeed registered for the crop that you're using it on. So make sure you talk to your local agronomist or retail to make sure that you do have those things set up and that you have done your due diligence and you're not going to cause any problems. They can be an excellent tool in helping us with harvest. Further to that, fungicides can also be a very helpful tool when used properly as well. So it's not necessarily a blanket statement, but in certain cases, certain diseases and certain crop types can attack the stalks and the stems of the plant, and ultimately weakening them, causing damage, and ultimately causing them to lodge or fall over. So depending on the crop type and the type of the disease that's present in the field, a fungicide applied at the right time can help keep those plants healthy, help keep them strong, which will help them ultimately to better standability and better harvestability as well. One other thing to that is also growth regulators. I know a lot of us have been using them. Most of us have probably heard about them. They too can be a very, very helpful tool when used properly. That'll help our crop stay standing and really help us push for those big yields on irrigated crops. So once again, make sure you talk to your local agronomist or retail to make sure it is indeed registered and safe to use for your specific situation that you have on your farm. Also, further to that as well is your fertility package. Your fertility package is another key thing to making sure your crop stays healthy and stays upright when it comes time to harvest. So careful for fertility planning can help avoid putting lodging prone crops on high fertility fields. Maybe a recent manure application has given a field a really, really high nutrient bank, and we want to maybe try and avoid putting certain crop states such as barley on that. That might just lay down and create some really bad lodging problems for us. Kind of in conjunction with that is also irrigation management. It's also a very, very helpful tool. We want to keep our crops standing upright. We see it every year. Crops have reached physiological maturity, so they're at a point where your plants and your seed are starting to change color. Essentially, your crop is done. It's not going to be growing anymore, and we just feel that need to get out there and put that extra half inch on to make sure those heads fill. And that is a good approach. However, more often than not, we do see guys putting that last half inch on, and all you're doing is flattening your crop. You're laying it down, you're making it wet, and ultimately you're creating the perfect environment for disease. So just be very careful when you're irrigating near the end of the year. Make sure that it does indeed need it. It's always a good idea, if you can, to try and top up that moisture profile as much as possible before those plants become too heavy. Once your heads and your pods begin to fill, they get top heavy. And I think in a lot of cases, you might find that you may not even need that last irrigation if you manage your irrigation properly. At the end of the year, sometimes those last irrigations can actually cause more harm than good. Also in relation to that is varieties. The varieties we choose can play a very important role when it comes to good standability at harvest. So certain varieties have more lodging resistance, certain ones are solid stem, maybe certain ones are shorter, but variety choice for your given crop type can make a really big impact when it comes to harvest. I also want to touch on a few of the combine settings. So I'm not going to directly speak to how to set the combine or what your rotor speed should be out of your fan speed or anything like that, but I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that the combine settings that you set your combine to, say at 9 in the morning when you first start combining, might not be the same as 4 p.m. in the afternoon. We all know that if you got a lot of acres ahead of you, your harvest window has maybe shrunk a little bit and you need to get going in the morning. Maybe it's not the perfect conditions in the morning. If we all live in southern Alberta here, if you have a really windy, hot, dry day, the conditions are going to be quite a bit different by, say, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So just be aware of that. Conditions change throughout the day. I encourage you guys to spend some time with some screens. Maybe you've got some drop pans installed, and just check those throughout the day. So first thing in the morning may not be good enough. You might want to do it several times throughout the day. Be aware that the newer Deere combines do have some excellent technology in them that can help you with that, and they can kind of adjust themselves throughout the day. If you do have any more questions about that, please feel free to stop in at any of our dealer locations and talk to one of our sales professionals. They can kind of walk you through what models of combines have that and how it can be useful to you. Another thing, I find that once we get out in the field in the fall, it seems like we're all in a big rush to get our crops in the bin, which is fine. I know it's all like that. We know the neighbors are already going. Maybe they've got already more done than we have, and we feel like we're behind before we even start. I just want to be aware. Make sure you know what's also going out the back of the machine, so that we're not losing revenue or losing dollars an acre out the back. I find that we all do a tremendous job throughout the year being very cost conscious of every dollar and cents that we put in when it comes to input. So when it comes into chemicals and fertility, we're very aware of it. But when harvest comes, we just get out there and we just want to get it done and get it in the bin. And unbeknownst to us, we could potentially be losing money out the back, and it could add up in a hurry too. So just be aware of that. Try not to rush through harvest too much. I mean, enjoy it. We've spent all year growing these crops. Let's spend a little bit of time, excuse me, harvesting and enjoying that part of the season as well. One last note, I just want everyone to be aware of what the fields look like after the combine has gone through the field. So one of the biggest issues we see is chaff and residue management. For dryland farmers, no-till guys that aren't going to be touching that ground after harvest, just be aware that what we see out in the field after the combine has gone through is essentially our seed bed for next spring. So if we do have dense strips of chaff left over, they can present big challenges when trying to seed through them the following spring. Now, I know some guys do maybe harrow to try and break up some of that chaff and some of that straw. That can be effective as well. But just be aware that if you have those heavy windrows of chaff, it can lead to poor emergence and essentially a poor stand the next spring. So a poor combining job can actually haunt you for the following year or maybe several years after that. Combines do a much better job, obviously, when it's warm, and when it's dry, they can throw the chaff out there and evenly distribute it. But the better spreading we have, the better your seed bed is going to be, and your drills are going to be able to go through the field. You're going to get a uniform emergence. You're not going to have stage variation, and ultimately it's setting you up for the next year as well. So certain machines do better jobs than other ones, and we do find that the Deere machines do an excellent job of really mulching up that chaff and that straw and doing a really good job of spreading it. Sometimes the next spring you can almost go out and tell who has what kind of combine the next spring when you see the chaff strips left in the field. So one more thing to be aware of. So that is all I had for everyone today. Just a brief kind of reminder and once through. I know most of us are already aware of the things I talked about today, but if nothing else, maybe it's just a reminder, or it gets the wheels turning in regards to a few things that aren't necessarily tied directly to the combine. So if you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to stop in at any one of our stores as well. We do have agronomists on site. We do have precision ag specialists where we do offer packages and services that can help you guys out with all of these needs. So thanks for tuning in, and happy harvesting.
Hi there, my name is Miriam Dietz, and I'm a production system specialist with John Deere Canada. I will be walking you through Operations Center as well as my operations this morning for the Western Tractor Harvest Clinics. I currently cover the areas of southern Alberta and southern Saskatchewan for the production systems of small grains, as well as I work through Western Canada for the production system of hay and forage. I'm going to start things off here quickly just by going in through Operations Center and giving a brief overview of how everything is set up. So the opening page is actually just a map here that will show the area in which you are located with your farm. So here I have a farm in Saskatchewan that I will be using for demonstrating all of the data today. So over on the left side here, you can see that your tools menu is located. This is where you're going to find all of the different applications that you can do within Operations Center. Here you're going to be able to see all of the fields that are added within Operations Center, and then here is the equipment that is going to be added as well. So we're going to start things off here with a little bit of an overview of Field Analyzer and Field Analyzer Beta. I'm going to select the field that I want to analyze, and down here at the bottom you can see that Field Analyzer is one of the tools available. You can also find this tool up here on the left under Field Analyzer or Field Analyzer Beta. I'm going to select it from this field, and we're going to dive a little bit into Field Analyzer and how it works. So when we take a look at Field Analyzer, we can see here that we brought up a 2019 wheat harvest map from hard red spring wheat. And here the initial layer that you're going to see is dry yield. So this legend here indicates the yield in the crop and the percentage of the crop that was yielding at that amount. On the side, you can see the total dry yield, the average dry yield, moisture, speed, and so on. So within traditional Field Analyzer, you can break down those different layers, taking a look at the dry yield or a dry yield contour, which just smooths the edges of the yield data that's coming in. You can also take a look at the wet weight, the moisture, and the harvest speed on this map too. So you can see here, shown on the legend, that this would be a very dry area of the crop. So this area would show that it's significantly more dry than the rest. With traditional Field Analyzer as well, you can use the compare function, which is going to allow you to bring two layers side by side to compare the differences. So here in this drier area, you can see that it also appeared to be higher yield. So that is with Field Analyzer. Now Field Analyzer Beta is the most recent update to Field Analyzer. Now the reason why it's called beta is not because it is incomplete. Field Analyzer Beta is still fully functioning. The reason why they left it in beta is so that they can still make additional functionality changes to the tool. So beta still works, it's fully functional, but they want to be able to add in small tweaks and changes if there's any suggestions that come in during this time. So they left it as Field Analyzer Beta for that purpose. So you can see here that Field Analyzer Beta is very similar to Field Analyzer. The data here is a little bit sharper, so there's a lot more detail in the actual information that's being pulled in when you're scrolling in to see exactly where that yield is coming off of the crop. Similarly to Field Analyzer, there is a summary tab with all of the data that it's going to be shown on the left side normally in Field Analyzer. It's going to be down here. However, the setup is for more so comparing multiple operations. So in this case, we have that spring wheat, once again from last year, and the dry yield layer. And then we have the seeding operation to compare with the as applied rate. So here, when we look in the data analysis tab, this is where the difference is going to show the comparison between the two. So when we're looking here at the as applied rate and the total yield, you can see this area here, let's say the total dry yield is the highest, is right around this as applied rate. So this, when you select it, is going to actually filter out those areas in the field as well. So you're able to actually take a closer look into the data that you're pulling in and make some inferences from that data too. So another option here, other than just the overview option, is to do a compare. Similar to Field Analyzer, you can compare the two operations side by side. However, you can select certain areas in that case too. Another option that you have with Field Analyzer Beta is to use the selection tool here to isolate certain areas of the field. You can use both a circle or square or draw your own boundary for this too. So here, I'm going to draw an area surrounding this higher yielding portion of the field. When you select that area, it's going to narrow down on both sides, just that area, and isolate it. And you're going to be able to look underneath in the Summary tab in the selected area here. So you can see the selected total dry yield and the selected average rate applied. You can do this for other operations as well. So you can look at different application layers that you may have brought in, as well as if you'd like to compare previous years of harvest, you can do that as well too. Another option that you have is to come in and instead of using the compare or overview, you can use an overlay option. This will allow you to lay over the two different layers of the field and change the opacity of these layers as well to try and see if there's any similarities between the two. Now with Field Analyzer Beta, you can also edit your legends. So this allows you to change the range in which you would like your different yielding areas to be. So for example, you can change this and you can actually change the number of layers too. When you do this, you can save it as a template if you'd like to use it in the future too. So when we change the layers on here, you can customize and you can see that actually over 100 bushels was 37% of the field. 28% of the field was yielding at 90 bushels. So when you change these around, you can actually customize the field to take a better look at what you're exactly looking for in your yield. Another useful tool that can be used during the harvest season and post-harvest season is Machine Analyzer. So when you take a look at the machine, you can see which machine type you can select, as well as you can filter whether it's active, inactive, or doesn't have a terminal. So when we look at the combine here, it actually breaks it down into the total engine hours as well as the period engine hours within this selected period, which is last year. And then it shows you the working percentage, transport percentage, and idle percentage of that machine. When you have multiple machines, this is very useful for breaking down which machine might be more efficient than another machine, and maybe identifying some issues that you could be having with that machine, or some efficiencies that you could improve over that year as well. So in this case, we had 142 hours of working, 17 hours of transport, and 12 hours of idle, or 22 hours, sorry, of idle in this case. You can take this data and you can export it to an Excel file, a PDF file, or a printed PDF file, which will include these information as well. Another useful tool for both in-season and post-season is the Agronomic Reports tool. Within this tool, you're able to select which crop season you'd like to look at, as well as you're able to select which operation you'd like to look at as well. Here we're going to take a look at the harvest operation. Within this, you can select a specific date range if you're looking for it, or within that season, it will select that full year. You can also narrow it down by which particular fields you'd like to see, which particular crop, or which variety you'd like to see in this report. For the harvest report, you're going to see the area that was covered, as well as your average yield, total yield, and average moisture for each individual field. So you can see it's going to be summarized for each field within this report. And at the bottom of the report, you're going to be able to see the total area that was covered. This report can be exported as a CSV or printed into a PDF format as well. This is very useful for working with service providers that may need a detailed report at the end of season from you. With this, we're going to take a look quickly at what it would look for application. So within application, you can see you're going to see this average rate, your total applied, and your area for each field as well. And this is going to be per product that it's going to be listed under that field. Similarly, you can select it per product or per field on the side too. With seeding, it is also very similar. You're going to see your area, you're going to see your application average rate, and you're going to see your total applied. You also can break it down by products by field and fields by product. So with products by field, you're going to see every single product that was applied on that specific field, broken down here showing every field, or you can select which specific fields you'd like to see too. Similarly, fields by product is going to show every product and then each field that it was applied on. It's going to also show the applied rate, total applied, and the area applied within that product. So you can see within this specific product, the total area that was covered with that product and the number of pounds that were applied of that product as well. This can be done both in the 2020, 2019, and broken down by every year. Another useful tool that will be available in the next month is the Analyze tool. This tool is very similar to the Analyze section that you will see on your My Operations app on the mobile version. It's very similar to the agronomic reports portion that we just reviewed, except it will give you a little bit more of a quick overview of the crops that you're currently putting in field, or your previous season's crops as well. So similar to agronomic reports, you can change your view, which is going to be your operation. If we take a look at harvest, and we're looking at our season for 2019, we can break down which crop type that we'd like to look at. Let's take a look at canola here. So here it's going to show you a summary of your totals and averages below. So what your average moisture was on your canola, as well as your average dry yield across all crops and your total dry yield. You're also going to be able to select the fields individually and see the area harvested per variety, your totals and averages as well. Similarly, you can add filters in, which would include which client, which farm, and which field. If you add this filter from a higher view, you're going to have more options. You can filter the date range as well, and the varieties in particular that you'd like to see. This can also be exported to a PDF or an Excel file. These can also be seen instead of in a field view by a variety view. So because we have canola filtered, we are only seeing canola varieties. If we want to see other varieties within wheat or within peas, we can see this here as well. You will see if you check your My Operations app that there is a very similar feature available on the app as well.
So now we're going to do a walkthrough of the My Operations app.
The My Operations app is very similar to the Operations Center digital web platform, except for it's going to be a lot more functional for when you're out in the field and a lot easier to see your field summaries. So we're looking at the exact same fields that we were looking at from the Operations Center web platform on the app here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select a field, and immediately it's going to show you the most recent application that's been done on that field. This most recent operation was an application of Liberty. So when you select on that work layer, you're going to be able to choose what you're looking for as a previous operation. In this case, we'll take a look again at that hard red spring wheat. Here you can select what you'd like to see on the map. In this case, dry yield wet weight, dry yield contour, moisture, harvest speed. I'm going to select the dry yield contour. So here you're going to be getting that summary that you were seeing online, except it's going to be accessible from your phone. The legend is shown here on the side, which can be hidden as well. You might be noticing down below that you're getting a summary as well, similar to the My Operations Center web platform. So here you can see your work type, your crop, your status, start time, finish time, area worked, and your average speed, as well as your total yield, moisture, wet weight, and so on. You also have functionality to edit that variety name within here or completely delete that work if you don't want it recorded. You also can share this layer as well as send directions to that location in the field via text message to someone that is trying to find you out in your field location. You can see the equipment that was used in that operation as well. From here you can see it says View Harvest in Analyze, and there's also in the bottom right an Analyze tab. This is going to give you a breakdown of the specific field and the varieties used on that field. So here you can see the varieties used, as well as we jump over you can see the total, the date, and the wet mass of that field too. When you go back, you can select it from a higher level, choosing what harvest layer or seeding or application layer you'd like to see, as well as the different fields or varieties. Within here, you can change your filters for varieties, clients, farms, your field, as well as the date that you've started. Or you can browse over to see these totals as well, just from the main page. This is not only accessible from the map, but just from the tab on the bottom right to show your analyze. We want to notice here on the main screen, you can see these flags that are showing up. Flags are able to be added from your location in field just by selecting an area down here and then hitting that plus flag button. That's going to let you select an area and then update this flag with a category, a field, notes, as well as you can add a photo of the location you're in field. This can help you note weeds or specific areas of a field, as well as perhaps rocks or certain conditions. Any previous flags, such as this one here, are going to show that information that was saved and the date it was saved on. So here you can see on September 17th, 2019, there was a field note recorded for harvest lodged wheat. This picture is showing that lodged wheat as well. From the main screen, you can also change your map settings, showing your equipment list, your flags, your last known work, your field boundaries, and so on. Location history is also going to be shown. Here you can see your location history is this green line showing the recording of where that piece of equipment was most recently, in this case, the sprayer. When you go directly to the equipment, you can select on that piece of equipment and it's going to give you information about that machine. Here, you can see the fuel consumed, machine utilization, fuel rate, engine load, engine speed, and so on this date. You can go into details about the machine itself, and then also RDA into that machine from your phone as well. Thanks for taking the time to attend the Western Tractor Harvest Clinics. If you have any questions, I will be available for Q&A later, as well as I'm sure that you can reach out to your local technology specialist with Western Tractor to send them any questions you might have.
In this video, Adrian will discuss immediate visual access to harvest settings to improve overall harvesting operations. From your My Operations app, you can make changes to 5 combine settings as the crop and harvesting conditions change throughout the day.
The My Operations app by John Deere provides insights into daily work summaries and field productivity, with the goal of improving logistics and efficiencies through knowledge of current acres worked, fuel levels, and machine performance. The My Operations app provides the opportunity to reflect on current as well as previously completed operations, all on the go from your mobile device. Within the app, we can view each machine's current location, as well as its location history for the past 24 hours, including direction of travel. We can also view machine performance data and get directions to each machine. In this video, we will be looking at the Settings tab as it relates to a feature called Remote View and Adjust. Remote View and Adjust is a feature that allows users the ability to view and adjust an S700 combine setting directly from a mobile device. The 5 combine settings are streamed directly from the Gen 4 4600 command center. The 5 combine settings that are displayed in the My Operations app are concave clearance, threshing speed, cleaning fan speed, chaffer clearance, and sieve clearance. Requirements for Remote View and Adjust include an S700 series combine, JD Link, premium activation, and the newest software. Also, make sure to update your My Operations app to the latest version. Click on Adjust Settings. Now you can either decrease, or in this case, increase one or any of the 5 settings. Send adjustments and then wait for the operator in the cab to accept the recommendation. Once accepted, the adjustment will be applied to the combine, and then the app will update to show that the adjustment has been completed. Next, I'll show you 2 examples of adjustments that fail and explain why they were unsuccessful. For a remote user to send an adjustment successfully from the My Operations app, there are a few things required of the operator in the cab. The operator must be in the seat, the machine needs to be moving at least 0.5 kilometers an hour, and the machine is in the harvesting state, which means the feeder house is lowered and the header and separator are engaged. The app user will receive an error message on the My Operations app if one of these requirements are not met, or if the adjustment is unsuccessful. If the adjustment is unsuccessful, a red X appears on the adjustment screen. In the first example, the machine was not in the harvesting state. It was still on the edge of the field idling. In this second example, we can see from the error message that the wheel speed was too slow, and therefore the adjustment could not be completed. Let's go inside the cab and see what Remote View and Adjust looks like for the machine operator. We will be using another feature in the app called RDA, Remote Display Access. Remote Display Access allows the My Operations app user to view the in-cab display on their mobile device in real time. Here we see the Gen 4 4600 display and the 5 combine settings we are attempting to adjust. Once the My Operations app user sends the request to the machine, a message will overlay on the display run page requesting that setting changes are recommended. The operator in the cab will need to confirm these changes on the Gen 4 display before the adjustment can be made. Once accepted, the machine will start to adjust the settings. Let's take another look at the operator accepting the recommendations and then the machine making the changes. The other option for the operator is to reject or decline the recommendations. Once declined, the remote display overlay will disappear and no changes are made. Let's go back to the My Operations app and see what it looks like when the operator in the cab declines the recommended remote adjustments. Here, the app user attempts to adjust the settings. The request is sent to the combine. The request overlay will now be displayed in the cab, and the operator declines the adjustment. Here we get the notification that the adjustment failed because the operator rejected the adjustment request. Because the request was unsuccessful, a red X appears on the app adjustment screen. Let's review. The combine is in the harvesting state, operator is in the seat and the machine moving forward with the feeder house lowered and the header and separator engaged. The My Operation app user sends a remote view and adjust request to the machine. We wait for the operator to accept the remote request, and then once successful, a green check mark will appear on the adjustment screen.
In this video, James will show you how to customize the shortcut bar for your operation.
Alright, today I'll be showing you how to add a sharing button to the bottom taskbar. It's pretty handy when you have 2 or more machines in a field. You can see how many are in your work group. So just go to your main menu button in the bottom right hand corner, Applications, down to your Layout Manager. This is the same spot where you can manipulate your run pages, but now we'll just be going to your shortcut bars. Default shortcut bar. Usually the one I remove is Quicklime. Remove shortcut, and you can even reposition different buttons here. So let's click on the plus, down to Applications. You will go down to Sharing, hit Add. There's your sharing button, hit Save, Escape, Escape, and there you go. You got your sharing button down here. When it will be working properly, you will see a digit here, so 1 for just one person, one machine in a work group, and then 2 and up for however many machines are in your work group.
In this video, Caleb will show us how to create a boundary track from existing coverage, as well how to operate a boundary track.
In this video, we're going to be showing you how to set up boundary track, as well as create boundaries and how to use them for subsequent headland passes while combining. The first thing you're going to need to do to create boundary track is create a boundary. For that, you're going to need to go in the menu button in the bottom right of the screen, then to Applications on the left hand side, and then down to Fields and Boundaries. In here, the first step to create a boundary is to have a client, a farm, and a field. And each field needs to be unique because each boundary is unique to that field. Once you have a client farm field, you'll click on Create Boundaries. There are 2 options to create boundaries. Create a driven boundary will allow you on your opening round to drive around the field and create a boundary. This will create the boundary off the edge of the implement, or in this case on a combine, the header. So for this, you would either set it up on the left or the right hand side of the header, and the boundary offset would be half the header width. That would make sure that the boundary is right at the edge of the header as you go around the field to give you an accurate representation of how many acres the field is. Or alternatively, you can go back to create boundaries and create boundary from coverage map. So if you've already done your outside opening round of a field, you can create a boundary off a coverage map. So you'll have just your first pass, and then the Gen 4 display will create the boundary to allow you to continue going around the field with subsequent boundary tracks. Once the Gen 4 display has created a boundary, you can use that boundary and hit save. And from here, you could either create a boundary track at the bottom of the screen, or if you already have a boundary created, or if you just created one, you can go to the bottom of the screen to guidance, then up to the top right hand side to set track, and then to the bottom left of the screen, new track. Normally we would create a straight track for a north-south or an east-west with A plus heading method, but in this instance we're going to use boundary track, and then we're going to select boundary fill and select the boundary that we just created. We can then name our guidance line boundary track, click OK, and click save. Now we have a guidance line that will drive our machine around the field in concentric circles inwards from the boundary in. It also gives you one guidance line outside the boundary if you were to have a smaller piece in the field that you were doing as a test field, and then an outside round that you wanted to clean up, or just to have another additional round outside the field. For this example, we can then turn auto track on and start to steer the machine to the next guidance line. Once we've picked up a guidance line, we can then select it, and the combine will then pick up on the guidance line and drive. If you notice on the left guidance line from the one that we're on, there is a white dot. That means that the display is making too sharp of a curve that the Gen 4 display will not be able to auto track around that curve, and manual intervention will be needed. The display will display the message sharp curve ahead at the top of the display to warn you that there is a curve that it cannot make moving forward, and it will also say end of path. The Gen 4 will curve around the field, and it can go in both directions from the guidance line, from the boundary that was made. So if you went counterclockwise, you could go clockwise the next pass if you needed to. You can auto track both directions, unlike adaptive curve, which we have used before. This option also lets you do multiple headland passes. If you've done your opening round and then you want to do 2 more headland passes to give yourself a large headland in the field, that is an option for you to do. It will make as many guidance lines inward until it makes a completely small circle and the entire field would be completed. They are all at your proper track spacing from where you were, so they will continue to move the machine inwards and continue to allow you to combine the entire way around the field.
In this video, Caleb will show us how to create tram lines in a Gen 4 display.
In this video, I'll be showing you how to set up tram lines and how to use them for combining and the value in them that you can utilize with your machine. The first thing that we need to do is we need to set up tram lines and turn them on. So for that, we're going to go into the guidance button at the bottom of the screen. We're then going to go to this top bar with this up arrow on the dot. We're going to click on that, which brings us into an extra settings menu. In this menu, if we scroll down several times until we see tram lines. Here, we'll want to turn on tram lines, and then we'll want our default tram spacing to be the number of machines that are in our fleet minus 1. So we want to have, if we have 4 machines, we'll want to have 7 lines in between our tram lines. So our tram lines will be the numbers that there will have 7 lines in between the two of them. So we're going to click OK. And then we're going to X out of here. And if you notice on our screen, I already had a guidance line made, but we don't have any tram lines showing on our screen. So we can either go into set track, make a new track, A plus heading, track 2. We want to show tram lines. So this button is now an option when you make a new set of guidance line. When you click OK, you hit set A. We want our heading to be 90. So we have an east-west line. We can hit done. And so now this extra screen pops up once we've done that, saying tramline settings. So we can do a couple things from here. We can we can zero the shifts of our tram lines and put it back to the original line that we created it on. We can center the tram line to the guidance line that we're on, or we can shift the tram line left and right. So this way we can shift the tram line to whichever line we want it to be on. And if we shift it and click the 0 button, it brings it back to the original line. The tram spacing is we want to have double the number of machines minus 1. So we have 4 machines in the fleet. We want to have double minus 1. So it'd be 8 minus 1 is 7 is our tram spacing. So we click OK. And now if you notice across our screen, we have tram lines set up. So we can see the next line that we need to go up is this green line. So if we have a pre-made guidance line already, so if we go back to track 1, which was our north-south, we still don't have tram lines. What we'll need to do for this is to go into set track, hit the pencil button on the right-hand side of our current track, and then we'll need to turn on show tram lines. So we'll turn on show tram lines and we'll click OK. And then we'll click cancel out of here. And now we have got tram lines for both sets of our guidance lines have tram lines. The same spacing, just depending on which way you're going to cut the field, you'll want to have tram lines set up for both lines. Every guidance line moving forward now, whenever you make a new guidance line, it will come up with the tram lines option in there, and we'll have the button on there for you to set up where you want them and how to center them. The other option about it is, so to use this effectively, what will happen is the lead combine will go up the tram line and come down the next pass. The other machines will be combining, they will have come down these passes and be going up these passes beside you. So the number 2 combine goes here, the number 3 combine goes here, the number 4 combine goes here, meaning that the grain cart can pick up number 4, 3, 2, and then turn around at the other end of the field and be coming back and pick up number 1, exit, and drive over and unload into the truck at the other end of the field. Then he can come back, pick up 4, 3, 2, turn around and pick up 1, go back to the truck. So it creates a very cyclic action moving through the field so that it's constantly flowing and no one ever stops and the grain cart never stops moving. He constantly keeps moving in circles. Most people combine this way anyway. This is just a way to have a highlighted green line so you don't have to count which pass you need to go up, and it makes it easier on the lead combine to know the passes that he needs to take, as well as the other combines to know where they need to also be.
In this video, Caleb will explain to us how to change layers in a Gen 4 display.
In this video, we're going to be talking about how to change map layers that you're looking at from blue coverage to different layers available on the Gen 4 display. So the first place you're going to need to go is on your home page. You just need to click on one of the map icons. If you don't have a map icon on your home page for guidance, you can go into menu, you can go into applications on the left hand side, and then you can scroll down until you find mapping. In mapping, it'll bring up this smaller window. You can click on that, and this is the window you'll be in. So in the bottom left hand side, you'll have these 3 dots and lines. You'll click on this button. This allows you to see what the legend for that map is. So if you have a single machine in the field, you'll have blue coverage, and if you have and then when you go over your own coverage, you'll have overlap. The other option is if you have multiple machines in the field, you'll show the other machine's coverage is blue, and then darker, like a different color blue for their overlap for coverage. The other options, instead of just looking at a blue map to see where people have been, is you can click on this white tab, these white boxes right here. Go into this menu and you can pick a different layer to view instead of coverage. So coverage is just blue. You could also view moisture or dry yield layers. We can click on dry yield, go back to our home page, and now when we view the entire map and zoom out, we can see our entire yield instead, and we can see the yield and how it yielded. But we notice that there's a lot of red streaks in the field. So we'll want to go back into that menu button in the bottom left, and we want to change our legend. So we know that we had some spots that we went down low enough that we want this to be 10 bushels and this to be 110 bushels. We can change these numbers to anything that we want according to what crop we're in. If you're in a crop that's lower yielding, you could have it at 0 bushels to 40, or a higher yielding crop like corn, you could start out at 100 and go to 200. We can click OK, and now our map gives us a better representation of what the yield was throughout that field. So the other option is you also get to see in a Gen 4 the yield from other machines being shared in the same field as well. Their yield will show up on your display, which allows you to view and see if they have a setting different than on their combine, what they're yielding, or if they might have forgotten to change settings from a different crop type. You can view out of your display what they're getting for yield, and if their yield is much lower because they haven't switched crops, then it might be a way for you to look at the job that they're doing while they're doing it. The other option with these layers is if you wanted to just cycle through the layers, there's this button above the other button. You can click on this and it'll cycle between coverage, moisture, and dry yield. And this allows us, you can just cycle through all the different layers. Same, our moisture map is quite off for moisture, so we're going to put this at 1%, and the top is going to be at 12%. This gives us the same kind of issue. We have the same similar green map, so we need it to be new work, we need it to be the legend, and we need to make this maybe 5% to 12%. This gives us a better representation of how the moisture changed throughout the field, and also we can then change. This gives us a good understanding of how our coverage looks moving through the field. The other point to note is on this, we can scroll through and go to our dry yield. When you start combining, the map behind you will be gray because it has to load the combining info on the, it takes a second for it to load the map. So here you can see it's starting to fill in color behind us. So you need to wait while you're combining to be able to view the different colors. It does only change whenever it sees a change in yield for a long enough period of time to justify it showing a different color, so it won't immediately blip just because there's a small point. And it will only change, it does lag behind the combine, so if you have the view zoomed in too much, you might not actually get to be able to see what your yield is unless you go to a whole map picture. So if you're zoomed in too much on your combine, you won't be able to see the changes in the yield behind you and view the map unless you go in the top left hand side to an entire view of the boundaried field. You'll be able to see the whole field and the yield as you go.
In this video, Joe will show us how to view other map layers on a 2630 display.
All you need to do is go to your setup, your GS3, mapping, map setting, and as you see, it's showing coverage only, which is default. You can change that to either flags, moisture, or yield. So in this case, we're going to change it to yield. Hit accept, and here we have our settings. To the left, we can toggle back and forth coverage and yield. We can add a bottom and top value where we want how we want it to read. We can switch this, let's say, to 185 at the bottom end. Keep in mind the simulator is it's not really working 100% the same as your combine because it's not showing instant yield on the main page. It is showing it right here, but not on your main page. Engage our separator and header, get fast idled, take the parking brake off, push the hydro handle ahead, start moving, here engage the auto track, and the way we are showing yield instead of coverage. We'll speed up a little bit. It's obviously showing low yield, so like I was saying before, it's reading 0 here, your instant yield, and that's the reason it's showing purple. It really should be what the simulator is reading. It should be reading green here. But quick and easy way to switch it. We can go switch it back at any time, toggle it back and forth, whatever we want to see.
In this video, Joe will explain how and when to use overlap control in a 2630 display.
I want to talk a little bit about overlap control on a 2630 display. Where overlap control is beneficial is when you're finishing up a field and you only have half a header width left to combine. Without overlap control, your yield will show very low due to a narrow cut. Overlap control will compensate for this. Keep in mind, if you have multiple combines in the same field, it only works if you have data sharing or machine sync. Let's see how we can set this up. We go to setup, and then we go to GS3, equipment, header, and here's your overlap control checkbox. We check it off. Go back to the home page. Now we can start combining. We engage the separator and the header. Go to high idle, take the park brake off, or it's not going to move. We start moving. Turn the auto steer on and hit our resume switch. And away we go. Keep in mind here on the simulator, because it is a simulator, it doesn't work exactly like it would show in the combine. It's not showing instant dry yield or wet yield, but it is actually working, as you can see here. Just unfortunately it's not showing up on the other page. We're going to turn around and we're going to overlap a bit of what we cut now. So we're only, instead of cutting 12 rows, we'll maybe go down to a few less. How many is hard to say, depends how it works out. So we're going to slow down a little bit, turn around, and then we're going to turn. So here we're overlapping pretty good. We'll center the line here and resume. Hit resume on the auto steer. And I'm going to probably speed up a little bit now. Better speed up a little more, there's rain coming. So now it doesn't show you exactly, but like I say, there's no instant dry or wet yield, but it is the accurate data that's coming in now, where if without overlap control, it would show really low yield on this last pass. So we'll shut things down, and that's the end of this video.